Imagine this scenario. You've found the perfect apartment, but the rent is a bit steep. The thought of negotiating with the landlord fills you with dread. You're not alone. Many renters feel the same way. The prospect of rent negotiation can be stressful, even overwhelming. This is especially true when you've set your heart on a particular property, but the rent price is just out of your reach. Why is it so nerve-wracking? It's because we often see negotiation as a conflict, a tug-of-war. We fear the awkwardness, the potential for disagreement, even the possibility of losing the apartment altogether. But let's reframe this perspective. Rent negotiation isn't a battle. It's a conversation. It's about finding a middle ground that suits both you and the landlord. It's about demonstrating your value as a tenant and understanding the landlord's needs as well. Don't worry though, with the right approach you can negotiate your rent successfully. Before you jump into the negotiation process, make sure you're well prepared. The first step in your preparation should be to research the rental market in your area. This will give you a frame of reference for what is considered a fair rent for similar properties. This knowledge will provide you with a solid foundation and a benchmark for your negotiations. There are numerous online resources available to help you with this. Next, you need to understand your budget. It's vital to determine the maximum rent you can afford without straining your finances. This will help you establish your boundaries during the negotiation process. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new place, but remember, your rent should not leave you struggling to meet your other financial obligations. Now, let's talk about you. The more desirable you appear as a tenant, the more likely your landlord will be open to negotiation, so it's time to highlight your strengths. Do you have a stable income, a good credit score, a responsible rental history? These are all points in your favor. Landlords are more likely to negotiate with tenants they perceive as reliable and low risk. In your preparation, also take note of any potential property enhancements. If you see areas in the property that require repairs or improvements, these can be used as leverage during your negotiations. You could propose a lower rent in exchange for taking care of minor repairs or upgrades yourself. This can be a win-win situation, as it reduces the landlord's workload and potentially lowers your rent. Lastly, prepare to be flexible. Show that you're willing to compromise on certain terms, such as agreeing to a rent increase after a specific period, or being open to minor adjustments in the property. This flexibility can often make the negotiation process smoother and more successful. Now that you're prepared, it's time to start the negotiation process. Negotiating rent isn't as intimidating as it seems if you approach it step by step. The first step in the negotiation process is to point out property enhancements. If you notice any necessary repairs or improvements in the property, don't shy away from mentioning them. Use this as leverage during negotiations. You could propose a lower rent in exchange for taking care of minor repairs or upgrades yourself. This can be a win-win situation. You get a more comfortable living situation, and the landlord gets a well-maintained property. Next, let's talk about timing. Timing is crucial in negotiations. It's usually easier to negotiate during off-peak rental seasons or when the property has been vacant for some time. Landlords may be more flexible during these periods in order to secure a tenant quickly. So, keep an eye on the property's vacancy status and be ready to make your move when the time is right. Another strategy to consider is offering longer lease terms. Landlords appreciate long-term tenants as they provide stability and consistent income. If you're in a position to commit for a longer period, offer to sign a longer lease in exchange for a reduced rent rate. This can provide you with substantial savings over time. Now, let's consider flexibility. Showing willingness to compromise can go a long way in negotiations. You could agree to a rent increase after a specified period or be open to minor adjustments in the property. This flexibility can make you a more attractive tenant and make the landlord more willing to negotiate. Remember, the aim here is not to win the negotiation, but to reach a mutually beneficial agreement. Landlords are people too, and they're more likely to be responsive if they feel respected and heard. So, keep the conversation open, respectful, and solution-oriented. Remember, your goal is to reach a win-win situation. Now let's look at what happens next. Once you've negotiated successfully, there are a few more steps to ensure everything goes smoothly. First and foremost, it's crucial to get all agreements in writing. This means that everything you and your landlord have agreed upon, including the rent rate, duration of the lease, and any additional services or terms, should be clearly documented in the lease agreement. This prevents misunderstandings and protects both parties down the line. Even with the best preparation and negotiation tactics, sometimes things don't go as planned. It's important to keep in mind that it's okay to walk away if the outcomes of the negotiation are not to your favor. There are always other rental options out there, and it's better to find a place where you feel comfortable with the terms and the rent. So, there you have it, a comprehensive guide to negotiating your rent effectively. Negotiating rent can seem daunting, but with these key points in mind, you're set for success. Start by researching market rates to understand what's fair for similar properties in the area. Know your budget. It's your boundary line in the negotiations. Showcase your strengths as a tenant: stable income, good credit, and responsible rental history. Point out property enhancements and negotiate timing to your advantage. Offering longer lease terms can also make you an attractive tenant. Be flexible, but also emphasize value-added services that could justify a higher rent. Use comparable listings to prove your proposed rent is competitive. If possible, negotiate directly with the landlord for a more personal touch. Stay professional and polite, but don't be afraid to walk away if the terms aren't right. Once you've reached an agreement, get it in writing. Remember, negotiation is a two-way process. Aim for a win-win outcome where both you and your landlord feel satisfied with the terms.